Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, your success strategist, bringing you week 22 of WealthWise 2025. Today, we are focused on a hot topic of the times, and that's looking at longevity wealth planning, financial strategies for 100-year plus life. We all know that our lifespans are getting longer. And pretty much with the advent of AI, with the advent in the health systems, with the advent of better diet, better health support, and our ability to really envision living to that 100 plus time span is opening up the need for us to do the behind the scenes work to make sure our legacy lasts longer than we do. This session builds on the current trends around extended lifespans and the need for a fundamentally different wealth planning mindset for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, forward-looking professionals, and you, your families, and your communities. I'm so glad that you've joined us today because we're diving into a bold but necessary topic, and that's planning for a 100-year plus life. What does it take to build wealth that lasts not just decades, but potentially a century plus? If you're a solopreneur or entrepreneur, this topic is especially critical because you're not just planning for your own future. You're ultimately architecting a legacy for you, your business, and your family. So let's start now by reframing the way we think about time, money, and health. Because in an era of medical advances, better wellness education, and changing career models, living to 90, 95, even 100 plus is becoming increasingly common. The real question is, have you architected your financial plan so that it's built for that outcome? So the first thing we need to do is rethink our timeline. Most traditional retirement models were designed around the idea of working for 40 years and retiring for maybe 20. But today, we're seeing people live active lives well into their 80s and 90s. That means your wealth building horizon must expand, not contract. For solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, this shifts the strategy. Instead of planning for one retirement phase, think of your financial life in 3 acts. Maybe Act 1, growth and scaling from your 20s into your 50s and or 60s. Act 2, legacy and freedom. Typically depends on where you are and what outcomes you want, 50s and 60s into 75-ish. And then Act 3, stewardship and significance, 75 to 100 years plus. So your wealth plan must not only sustain, but it must evolve across all 3 of these time horizons. So what do we do? What are the wealth strategies that we should be following or thinking about for a 100-year life? When you expect to live greater than 100, we need to explore a few key pillars that helps us ensure that our money doesn't run out before we do. 5 key areas: diversified passive income. That could be generation of monies through rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, digital products, royalties, or other revenue streams that continue on even when you are not personally working. We've talked about that before under the auspices of the balanced portfolio. How many active streams of revenue do you have where it takes a conscious act for you to produce versus the passive incomes that come through these other types of opportunities that we just mentioned, as well as many more. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But really, as we age, we want to move more from active into passive. The earlier we can start undertaking and putting in place the passive income streams, the wealthier we are going to get, and the better we can serve multiple generations going forward. We need to look at longevity insurance and extended care plans. And we need to protect our wealth by planning now for future health care or assisted living needs, especially if you're self-employed and without traditional benefits. The next is human capital investment. Longevity means you may pivot careers multiple times over your lifetime. So you need a pot of money to help you keep investing in yourself, to help you stay relevant, and to help keep your skill set at its sharpest. We need to take into consideration multi-generational planning. Again, start building the wealth vehicles like trust, donor-advised funds, or family businesses that can support future generations and pass on not just money, but wisdom and opportunity. AI and tech-enabled financial management. So use tools like robo-advisors, smart investment platforms, and health tracking to optimize both your finances and your well-being. We next need to look at entrepreneurial considerations. So for business owners, there are 5 key longevity planning questions that we need to reflect on before we can adequately take action going forward. And the first is your business model scalable and sustainable for the long term? What is your exit plan? Is that going public? Is that a sale? Is that to pass it to the next generation of family members? Or is that to close it down upon the end of your particular professional life? You need to decide early, and it's better if we can start with the end in mind so that we can reverse engineer the outcomes and the results in a very granular fashion as we move forward with our wealth planning activities. Can we build in succession or sale options for later years? Again, just what we talked about. Keep the end in mind. What is the exit that we are looking for in the longer term? And it doesn't mean that you have to make the totality of the decision now. What we want you to do is understand what the different options are so that, and for you to put in place an annual or biannual question to understand, am I at this critical juncture where I need to make a decision going forward on which route I'm going to take? Because scaling and growing your business and evaluation activities is different if you're going to do an IPO versus if you were going to look at it for potential sale at a latter time. You're going to prioritize different actions. You're going to prioritize different wealth building activities, either to meet investors' demands and or to meet market demands for an IPO. Again, if it's are you going to keep it private and you're just going to pass it from family member to family member? What does that look like? What is the criteria? What is the decision framework that you're going to use to know when it's time to take that next step? Have you separated personal and business finances clearly for future stability? This is very, very important. We all know the legal and governance ramifications if we don't clearly allocate our monies into the right bucket. So the earlier you can create the separation and the proper business controls around those, the better off you will be in the long term. If you need to get advice from an accountant, a CFO, a specialty small business consultant in this area, we advise that you get the expertise you need to make sure that your approach is documented and that you are adhering to the proper controls going forward. Are your retirement assets diversified beyond your business? So you need to look at, especially if you're a solopreneur or entrepreneur, the different retirement investments that you have available to you, as well as understanding how prior phases of your life are going to impact those decisions, etc. So you need to look at that from again, a portfolio perspective and make sure that if you have employees that they are taken care of, as well as your business and yourself. What legacy systems are you using to or creating to support your family and community beyond your active years? Again, this goes back to a topic that we were created, and that's looking at multi-generational wealth and the legacy that you're creating. We want to be thinking about that up front so that we can structure the plan and work the plan towards those extremely important outcomes. Those could be trust, that could be any amount of different types of foundational giving, etc. It also contains more multi-generational wealth transference tool knowledge. So again, if you do not have an expert in this arena for your business and or your life, we highly advocate for adding one of those into your advisory portfolios. So again, no matter whether we're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, we need to ensure that we're investing for the long term. It's no longer enough to focus on perhaps a 60, 70, or 80-year time span. Again, we're looking at a 100-year plus life. So I challenge you to ask yourself, am I building for a 100-year plus life, or am I following a 20th century legacy old wealth model? Where in your financial planning do you need to extend your time horizon? What longevity-based risk have you not yet accounted for? And how can you build a legacy that lasts much beyond you and your time span? We have a lot of people focused on 3 lifetimes out and creating a legacy for multi-generational wealth that will help not only our children, but our grandchildren and our greats, or the broader community going forwards. So you're not just building a business and a legacy for today's success. You're engineering a life of impact and resilience. Your future self will thank you for the actions that you undertake and plan and activate now. Our challenge for this next week is to have you review your current retirement and investment strategy. Does it account for a 30, 40, 50 years of post-career life? Please explore one new tool or vehicle for long-term passive income. And third, write down your personal vision for your life at 100 years plus. What do you want to be doing? Who will be around you? And how do you want to be experiencing that long abundant life. Join us again next week, where we'll be focusing on financial foresight, navigating big decisions with clarity and confidence. Again, this is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, bringing you week 22 of WealthWise 2025, longevity wealth planning, financial strategies for a 100-year plus life.